Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because folks, life's too short to be miserable. Welcome back, my friends, to the Inspiring Possible podcast. Today's going to be a really important, or it's not important, maybe special episode to me because I am going to be reflecting on the lessons that I've learned kind of maybe over the past 6 or 7 years from setting my first goals in 2019 to where I am now, which is like building a business or two and creating a vision for the future. And this is going to be hopefully helpful for you and insightful. Hopefully, I'm going to pull back the curtains so you can see how this whole thing unfolded, why I'm passionate about encouraging you, my dear friends, to set intentional goals for your life and ways to navigate through it was when it doesn't always turn out as you expect it. Because I'll be honest with you folks, you can set a goal and it can look a little bit different than what you initially set it out to be. It can look completely different, but there is this beautiful, magical place when you are living with intention versus living reactively. And this doesn't mean that you don't have bad days. It doesn't mean that you get up some days and you just have no energy to have any action whatsoever. I mean, this past weekend, I woke up on maybe it was a Sunday morning and I went back to bed after I had some breakfast. And I started having this narrative in my head like, Christy, you should get up, you should be doing something. And then I just allowed myself to rest. And I probably took me a pretty good nap. I know some of y'all out there are probably thinking, Christy, if I could only nap, that'd be awesome. But I took me a nap and I think I slept till probably like the afternoon, not going to lie. And that's what I needed. And I got up and I felt better. But I say that to say sometimes you're not always going to feel like doing, you're not always going to be pushing the needle forward. But I do think there is this beautiful thing about creating a vision, setting some goals, having some intention for your life, getting up every day, reassessing how you're doing towards that. Doesn't mean that you focus on it every day, but every now and then you look at it and say, okay, am I living in aligned life? Because what happens is when you are persistent and consistent over a period of time, things shift and they change. And so recently, the business I started 5 years ago has reached its 5th year anniversary. So it's gotten me all in my feels, all in my like reflective, like nature of like, also a little bit tired. I'm not going to lie. There was a little bit like, ooh, I need to slow down this last quarter of the year and just take in everything that's happened for the past 5 years. And I don't know what it is about 5 years that is really resonating deep with me. And maybe it's because of that Tony Robbins quote that says, like, most people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 3 to 5 years. And I'm telling y'all, that is a testament. I'm here to testify. But I also think testimony or hearing someone's story can be powerful. For me, when I've heard stories of people who overcame adversity, who had a goal and kept pushing, and then to hear that they got to the other side, it gives me encouragement to keep going. And so that's what I want to be for you today. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my past 6 years, 5 years story of how I ended up to where I am now. And hopefully, I'll talk about some of the obstacles I faced, along with the tools that helped me get along the way. Like, how did I get here? And how important it is to keep going, even when the path isn't clear. Because, folks, you can prepare all day long, but you never know what's going to happen. And I'll be honest with you, I've been watching a lot of what happened with this recent hurricane, and my heart and prayers are going out to a lot of people that were affected because I watched this reel of this girl who pretty much lost everything in this hurricane, and she lived somewhere in North Carolina. And she was talking about the fact that, like, yesterday, my life was completely different than it is today. Today, I've lost pretty much everything. I still have hope, but what my plans looked like yesterday have changed drastically. So please bear in mind that things can change very quickly, but we still want to create goals as if tomorrow maybe they aren't going to change drastically. But that's where the power of pivot, even when the path isn't clear, is really important to do. But we're not talking about pivoting today, folks. We're going to talk about a little bit of my lessons that I want to give to you over the past 5 to 6 years that I've learned. So let's talk about how this whole thing started, why I'm passionate about inspiring possible, why I get on here and tell you things that hopefully can help you along the path. Here's why I'm passionate. In the end of 2018, I read a book, and let me see if I can find it. I just put it somewhere. And of course, I already misplaced it. Oh, it's under my notes here. It is Your Best Year Ever by Michael Hyatt. And it's like a 5-step plan for achieving your most important goals. And to set some context about where I was at in my life, I left a job in the beginning of 2018, maybe around the spring, that I had just poured so much of my heart, soul, energy into. And I really thought this was going to be like a 10-year plus thing for me. Like I was going to rock it till the wheels fall off. I had a really awesome opportunity at a very young age in my later 20s to get into like a management leadership position and really be tasked with growing an organizational program. And there was a lot of growth that happened in those 4 to 5 years that I was there, a lot of organizational changes. And I thought that I was going to continue to grow with the organization. However, the organization started to grow in a different way that caused a lot of stress for me. And I was so stuck. I could not see what other possibilities were available for my life. For the first time ever, as a single mom and solo income earner, I was earning a decent income. Actually, it was really very good compared to most people's income. And I was able to support me and my daughter. And that felt good because I'll be honest with you guys, for years, that is not, what happened. I always was able and thankful, thank you, Lord, that I was able to support her. And we never wanted for anything. But financial insecurity was a real part of my journey at different parts along the road. Even at one point when I was pursuing my graduate education, which I was very thankful to have that opportunity. But I remember that fork in the road. I was given some advice by my advisor at the time, my academic advisor, who said, Christy, if you want to finish this program by this time that you said you wanted to finish it in, you're going to have to quit your job. And as a single mom, that was very scary for me because I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills. I mean, I have a house, I had a trailer note at the time. I had a light bill to pay. Like, how am I going to do this? And I remember that was actually one of the first of many. I mean, there was other points upon in my life before that where I was given opportunities to leap, which means that the path was not clear. I just knew the outcome or the goal that I was heading towards, and I jumped out in faith that it would all work out. And I'm not saying it hasn't been easy, but I will tell y'all one thing for certain. And I push this back on my faith and just my personal belief systems, which I know not everybody has, but my personal belief systems was that I was provided for and God carried me through. But those were hard times. It was hard times to have to call up the food stamp office and ask to be put on food stamps because I had no income. It was hard to take help from other people to, like, I don't know, just allow them to do things for me. Those were hard times, but there was some clarity of where I was going. And then there was this also driving why, which I think everybody needs to figure out of why was this important for me to get there. And I can't explain to you why, but helping people has been a passion in my life. It just really has. It brings me a lot of purpose and meaning. But selfishly, it makes me feel good because helping people also helps me. And that's crazy to say that out loud, but really, honestly, there's can be a lot of reward when you are spending your life mission on how can I help make someone else's lives a little bit better. Okay, but back to the story. So in 2018, early 2018, I was forced with a really hard decision with this organization that I was working for, and I chose to leap out of that job. I realized it was doing a lot of negative things for my health, my well-being, and I almost had this place in my mind that, like, something different is better than staying here. And I don't want you to ever get to that place where you're like, Christy, I can't take this no more. I got to jump out. But it's so because it's harder. That is harder to get to a place where you're just like so burnt out, so stuck, so whatever. You're like, I've got to jump shift. What's easier is sometimes noticing that things are not going well and pivoting versus just having to take a bailout. Like I think about those people that have to jump out of planes, like maybe the plane is like not flying like it's supposed to, and you have to have jump out of this plane with a parachute. Like it's in my mind, easier to steer the plane to the ground and then get off safely versus risking your life by jumping out of the plane with a parachute. My thoughts, I've never parachuted before, but that's my general thoughts. So I got to a place where I'm like, I have to abort this ship because this is not good for me. And I can notice some effects it's having in my life. So I went and I boarded ship and I went to another opportunity. But this was a really difficult shift for me because at the time my income got cut in half. And in fact, at this point in my career with a master's degree, multiple years in the helping profession as a licensed professional counselor, I was at this really rough place that like I went back to having income that was about the same whenever I started this journey to begin with. And when you have to take that much of a shift, you know you need to breathe. And I just realized that like what do I need to live? What is the absolute minimum I need to live off of? And if I can take this shift, will it help me regain my footing? And it did. I'll be honest with you, not at first because I was in burnout. And for those of y'all who don't know, when you get to a place of serious burnout, it takes a lot longer for you to get back on the road versus taking care of yourself before you get to the place that you've just completely said, I can't do this anymore. And so thankfully, I had this wonderful opportunity as the journey always provides, even though it doesn't seem like it. As it was supposed to happen, I got a year to where I was able to really just take some more time. And that's a gift when I say that. I know that not everybody has that opportunity. So it was a real gift to me. Sure. Was I having to count my pennies? Yes. But I was really fortunate to, number one, still have a job. And number two, be able to have some more time in my day to think about what next. And so I remember I started reading these books. I was listening to podcasts that really helped me shift my mindset about what was possible for my life. And this book by Michael Hyatt was one of those books. But I knew that I had did all these New Year's resolutions for years and years and years and never made any traction. Seriously, if this resonates with somebody, I would like set some New Year's resolutions at the beginning of the year, get mid-year or forget mid-year, Christy, you are saying it too nicely. I get to like month 2, February, and not be following through with any of the things that I said I was going to do. So I said, okay, I've got to do something differently. And I started thinking, what helps me actually do the things I say I want to do? So I knew I needed to have some accountability. And so I remember I put this Facebook post out and it said something like, hey, ladies, I was gearing it towards women. No offense, men. I know y'all are listening. It's just because I was having women in my house, it was just a thing. Okay. So I said, hey, I am putting together a goal group. If you are ready to make some major shifts in your life, come join. But the only thing that I'm asking is that you commit to coming once a month for the next 12 months. And I was surprised. I had some people say, yay, I want to come. And I'll be honest with you, I think there was about like 10 or 12 people to the first one. Then it dropped off to like, 8 or 9. Then by the mid-year, there was like a good 6 or 7 of us. And the people that made it to the end of the year were maybe like 6. So, hey, my possible people, you committed. But, I didn't mean to highlight that, but what I mean to highlight is a lot of times we'll start to commit, but we have to be consistent to see some traction towards our goals. And I created a group because I knew that I needed help. And here are some of the goals that I had in 2019. Okay. I just want to share these with you because it's interesting to document this kind of stuff, folks, because you can see where your priorities were at that time and to see actually how things shifted. So one of my goals was and honestly, I had way more goals listed down than I probably should have. I've learned over time for goal setting, if you can keep it down to like a few, probably 5 or under, it's a lot more likely for you to focus on them. But I do think you need goals in different areas of your life, from your relationships to your health to your career development or business. But here's what mine were. start an online platform and consulting speaking business. Well, I did have a website that launched in April 2019. And actually, that was the first ChristyPennison.com, inspiring.possible.com website. And what it was a blog. Yay! So before this podcast was a thing, I was blogging for years, maybe not consistently, really in that first 2019 year, but it was a blog. And then eventually it became the home for the podcast as well. The second goal was to write a book, which I have not done, but I still think that's on my heart to do someday. Another thing was to travel somewhere awesome. Y'all remember, I was on the limited funds that year, but I do think I did go to the Summit of Greatness, which was pretty awesome. It wasn't an international trip with a friend, but it was this pretty cool experience that really was going to change the trajectory of my life. I was to finish house remodeling task and I accomplished that and I actually sold my house that year. But when I made these, it wasn't to actually sell the house. It was just to remodel it. So your goals will shift in the year. I was going to focus on fitness and complete a triathlon. Folks, to this day, I have not done no triathlon and I'm okay with it. But I was going to work out more consistently. One of my goals was to develop new friendships, invest time in current ones. And I had actually like specific things underneath each of these, but I'm not going to tell you all of them for the sake of time. And I probably won't tell you all of them, but another one was like increase in community involvement. So I wanted to do like some volunteer opportunities. And I think I was actually able to do that. Spend more time with God and with my spiritual beliefs, which I think I did a little bit of it, not all of that I listed. My goal was to increase my financial stability by doing a few things. Now, folks, I didn't really do it this year, but I did do it in the future years and do some professional development. And I had some clear things about what I wanted to develop professionally. And my 5-year goal, it's so funny, and I'm so glad that I printed this out, was established online business where I was able to provide teaching, mentorship, motivational speaking, creating opportunities for travel, meeting others, hearing other stories, and impact and influence others through inspiration and motivation. And what's cool about this is my 5-year goal never, ever, ever, when I did these goals, did I never that year think that I was going to move back home, start a business, a brick and mortar business, through providing what I was, trained to do, which was counseling, and expand that in 5 years to a multi-location practice. Never in my mind when I was doing these goals did I think that. But I think the importance and intention behind goals is that you start somewhere and then you follow the path and you recreate them as you go along. And what's happened is my vision, as I started with this initial 2019 goals with this group of women that we talked about it, we wrote it down, we talked about it with each other, how we're going to move forward, is even in 6 months of me starting this, my life changed drastically. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to wake up in 5 months from now from goal setting and be like, I've got to move back to my hometown, sell my house and start this, counseling program. I'm not saying I'm not saying that my story is your story, but what I've learned is that whenever you are crafting a goal or a vision for your life, it's a step towards something that you don't even always know what you're being called to. But if you are able to just pay more attention to these kind of things, the more likely you're going to be aware of those opportunities when they come your way. So I want you to think back just initially on your own goals that maybe you created at the beginning of the year, maybe you've created them recently. And I just want you to ask yourself, and I'm still doing this question. So trust me, I've been reflecting all weekend a little bit on this, but are your goals that you had set out to do, are they still aligned with your true desires? Or is it time to refine them? So here's a little bit of the journey of moving back and at least in my story, moving back, starting a business and kind of envisioning life is, I returned to my hometown and there was a lot of challenges and emotions tied to this from like not being able to find a home as easily as I thought I was going to, not getting clients rushing in the doors for probably the first 8 months. It was really hard. I always tell the story about by month 8, I was in like $25 left in my bank account. And so I don't want y'all to think that this journey is easy, but it has been worth it. And I think the thing that's worth it is that you can see where you started to envision what could be. And if you don't give up, how it actually can come to fruition if you keep going. So I can think about moving back, and I had a lot of different people say different things about this idea of me moving back. Some people thought it was a great idea. Some people thought, "Oh, you sure? How you going to pay for your bills?" I still think to this day, my realtor who always tells me, she didn't tell me this till like a year or two later, low key. She was like, "Christy, when I sold you that house and helped you get into that house, I thought you were low key lost it. And I did not know how you're going to pay for that." And I always love that because I just thought it was going to happen. And I'm thankful that I didn't know what I didn't know, because sometimes us knowing things can keep us from trying. And sometimes the best thing we can give ourselves is to try. And so when I was starting the business, the early days and just moving back to my hometown, it was really trying to get clear on, like, again, what did I want this to look like? Now, I will say the very beginning, and this is not for everybody, so this is not gonna be your story, but the clearer you are on your mission and your vision, it can help guide your steps. So for me, I had a clear idea of my mission, my vision. I had a clear idea of what I ultimately thought I would like my life to look like. Has it changed? Yes. But has it aligned with my core values? Yes. There are things about me that I value that is like ingrained in the mission and vision of the things that I do. And that's why I think it is important to make sure you understand what is the values that you hold, because those are going to be kind of like the guiding post that'll help you guide your decisions. I also had ideas of what I wanted my relationships to look like, my friendships to look like, all those things, but they didn't materialize overnight. And so I want you to think about, maybe what are some areas in your life that are in transition right now, and how can you use these changes to shape your future vision? I told you in my story, there were changes and there were transitions that I was not expecting along my path. But I was able to kind of sometimes pause and see, how could these changes be something that's directing me towards something bigger or something else? And remember that sometimes changes and life and transitions can provide opportunities for you to go to a different future than you imagine. There were a lot of obstacles over the past 5 years that I've faced. I'm telling you, whether it be weather related, whether it be personal, professional, emotional, sometimes not always feeling like it. And sometimes some of these obstacles from, like, I can remember when the office flooded, or, COVID hit, and like not even literally month 6 of business, how some of my friends went through some really hard things that I was fortunate enough to be there to support them through. But a lot of these obstacles sometimes felt insurmountable at times. It almost seemed that, like, these things that were thrown in the path were hard to figure out how to get forward. But one of the things that I want to highlight is that there will always be obstacles going to come your way. In fact, if I can tell you for 100% certainty what will come your way, it's an obstacle. Like, I've gotten so used to them, I know they're coming. Now, sometimes they still take me by surprise, but there's going to be obstacles and challenges and things we didn't predict that are going to come our way. But even when things get tough, it's how can you push through? Even when outcomes are uncertain, how can you go back to the core things that you know to be true and hold on to them for dear life? So I can think about this personal moment of a time where I don't know if I wanted to give up, but I just didn't know how this was going to work out. And that was the day that our office flooded. I'll never forget. I drove up to the office. We were just getting started with somebody other than me. Like, I think I might have had two other team members at the time, both of them working more in a part-time capacity. And we had an ice storm here in central Louisiana, and the roads were impassable. But when the ice started to melt, I was able to get out on the road and go check how our office was. And I'll never forget walking up to the door and water coming out the front of the door. And, for anybody that has a home that has been flooded, or an office, or I don't know, you've had a challenge, you know what I'm talking about. It's like there's shock, there's a little bit disbelief. Like, I really legit thought I was going to suck that stuff up with a shop pack and be done with it. But you have to look at the situation and you have to figure out, okay, what's my next step? And sometimes it's getting more information. So I remember I called up the person next to me because I realized there was water coming from her front door as well. And she got over there and Lord, if I thought what I had was bad, hers, the roof had collapsed essentially and it was draining water. And I remember when I saw that, I said, it's time to go. Whatever you're holding on to, Christy, whatever certainty you thought that this place is going to provide, you've got to go. And I've never packed up so quick in my life. And thank God for family members who jumped up and they're like, Christy, we'll bring over the thing. We're loaded up. But there was a lot of uncertainty because there was about a month that we were in limbo that we didn't have a place to see people, you know? And that was hard. But, there was something in me that said, this is going to be okay. And then I remember we found a place to move to, but the rent was going to be like 3 times the amount that we were paying. But I just said a deep prayer and felt strongly that was where we were supposed to be, even though I was scared. So sometimes you're going to go through obstacles that you're going to be scared. You're going to be uncertain. You're not going to know what the heck to do. You're not going to know where your next penny is going to come from. But that's where that faith piece, I think, steps in. And faith in what you believe is possible. I have listened to people's stories. I love listening to people's stories that have done these crazy, impossible things, like in my mind, more impossible than I can ever imagine. And what's crazy that I always hear them say is there was multiple points where they could have given up, but they persisted. And so I want you to think about what obstacles are you currently facing and how can you reframe them as stepping stones? Don't look at them as like you should not go proceed. Now, I don't think there are sometimes obstacles that are put in your way divinely for you to not move through. But I want you to think about some of the obstacles that you're currently facing and how can you look at them as stepping stones and challenges just to move through versus things that are stopping you. Now we've gotten here, and I mean, there's been so many other challenges that I probably could like write a whole book about. Maybe one day I will. Remember that was a goal. But when I look back on these 2019 goals and I think about the goals that I've created since then, I've realized that these things change, move. They're like breathing things that like breathe things into life. Like some of this stuff has came to life. Okay. And they're not always what you first put down on paper. They can change and shift and grow. And that's okay. So here's some tools that have helped me really find a way to accomplish a lot of goals, from learning how to do CrossFit, which is still crazy. And sometimes I don't always do it to 100%, but I try to, creating a business with people and doing work with people that I really love. I really love the people that have just came together on our team. And I love being able to support our community. It is the most beautiful gift. I'm honestly humbled and grateful that I get to do this work. And then I'm also grateful that this work has allowed me a certain ability to have other creative space to do other things like this podcast. It's amazing. It's not always easy, but it's amazing when you really reflect on what actually can be possible for your life. And then I think about relationships. There are relationships in my life right now, even a romantic relationship I got in this year that I wouldn't have thought was possible. And maybe it was the therapy that helped me get ready for it. But, that intentional steps towards opening yourself up to possibilities is really where it's at, folks. And so here are some tools that help me succeed, because this episode's going a little bit longer than I expected. But, I'll start talking about my story and I want to inspire you folks. But these are the things that help me succeed. And this is not an exhaustive list, but if I was to say, what are the things that helped me create possibilities besides that clear vision that I always talk about, getting clear on your vision and your mission and your values and why it's important, why you want to actually accomplish these goals in your life, where it's financial goals, relational goals, spiritual goals, community involvement goals, business goals. I mean, I don't care what the goal is. You need to know why it's important to you. But these things have helped me succeed in any area of my life, and I will put my hand on the Bible for it. Okay. One of that is accountability and peer support. Folks, if y'all think I just got up every day and came through just by sheer willpower and discipline, that is not the truth. What I learned about myself early on is I need some accountability. And accountability in my life helps me stay committed to what I said I was going to do. And so, whether it been that first goal group that I said, come on, ladies, I mean, I was doing it for them, but I was doing it for me because I needed people to hold me accountable. And I knew this is one thing I've learned about myself. And I don't know if this is true for you.
I can show up for people all day long. So it's hard for me to show up for myself. If I create a group where people are going to be there that are depending on me to like lead it, then I'm going to do the work to make sure I have stuff prepared and that they're going to have that opportunity to share. And so accountability partners and then also peer groups. Like when I started, whether it be working out, whether it be spiritually, whether it be in my business, I got into peer groups, typically led by somebody that had gone before. I call them the sage guides or the mentors, the Yodas of the world that could help guide us. But there were also people that were going through it with me. And those people have been invaluable supports that have kept me on track and helped me see my blind spots when I couldn't see them. I also think, like I said, coaching and mentorship, hands down. I don't care if you've got to go find somebody that has been 5 steps ahead of you or that is willing to mentor you. What I've gained from asking for help from people smarter or more experienced than me, and I've had to pay them sometimes, has been one of the most greatest gifts. And it's crazy because you know what? Some of us may went to higher learning and education and you pay people to teach you. Sometimes you got to pay people to keep on helping you learn that thing or that specialized skill that you need to go the distance. And so I feel like that has been a big tool that's helped me succeed. You know, another thing is really doing some mindset work, guys, whether it be gratitudes, like daily gratitudes. I am so thankful for this challenge. You know, whether it be listening to people who are motivational and inspiring, listening to experts who have learned different areas or have niched down in different areas of their life that they've learned to now help others. I'll listen to them people. And I also think spiritual guidance, like leaning in to whatever it is that you believe in that spiritual sense. I think that sometimes has really helped me stay grounded and focused. And also, it's helped me not sweat the small stuff. It's super important to focus on the next best step versus instead of the whole staircase because the whole staircase can be overwhelming. I think about this hiking thing I'm going to do in February, which I'm super excited about. I signed myself up for it because I'm like, Christy, you know you want to do this and you worked hard to get here and you're going to go hike that mountain. If I think about the whole hiking experience and how many miles I'm going to have to hike over so many days, it's very intimidating. But I'm going to focus on like walking a little bit of time around my little neighborhood, and I'm going to hike like longer distances to prepare myself for that bigger experience. But we have to start small. There's also practical tools of like writing things down, journaling, making your goals put down on a piece of paper. But I'll be honest with you, financial stewardship is a big thing. So, like setting financial goals or setting financial goals to figure out how to understand what money is. I had a lot of money stories, not always great growing up, and learning to be more aware of what money is. I know we all know what it is, but how do you make more of it? How do you save it? How do you manage it? So that financial stewardship, if sometimes this money management thing can really be hard because you may have never learned the skills. And if you haven't, learning those skills can really help you figure out how to make these things possible. So getting to know your numbers, and that really empowered me. I'll be honest with you, I'm a therapist and I was supposed to be in therapy a long time ago, but it took me a minute to get my own therapy. And, you know, I think getting my own support and help, not only just in coaching, but my own therapy has helped me figure out ways to maintain my own emotional well being so that I can support others. And I also think slowing down and getting into nature has helped me a lot. So, taking breaks to reset, connect with nature, that's really been able to fuel my growth. And reading. Listen, folks, I mean, there are some people out there you can read their book for like $20. If you try to get an hour with them to learn about what they know, that's might going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Okay. Seriously. But sometimes just reading can really help you learn the skills that you need. So if there's a goal you're going towards, sometimes it's like, who can teach me this? Not always how. Who is the person I need to learn from? Who needs to help me? Not always how. And so sometimes it's trying to figure out, okay, who's going to help me learn this next thing? So I want you to think about, and also shout out to my peoples. I mean, guys, another thing that's helped me get here is the people, whether it be people on the team, you know, whether it be people in my family. God knows my mom's moved more couches than she would ever want to move in her life. But it's important to not go it alone. If you want to learn how to give up real quick, you just try to do it by yourself. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So I want you to think about what resources or support systems can you tap in to help you go the distance on your own journey. So here, I'm going to wrap this up, folks, because, I was going to make this 20 minutes and 30 something minutes later, we still here. But here is the things that I want you to think about. Hopefully my journey and brief story has helped you today. Find some inspiration. Listen, reflect on the importance of setting goals with intention. Set you some goals, people. Set you some goals. I don't care if it's one. Start somewhere. Start small. One. What is one thing you want to change in your life? And set a goal around that. And say, I don't know how I make this possible, but I'm going to commit to figuring it out. Okay? Embrace them challenges. They're going to come. Embrace them. Go ahead and make them your friends. They're coming your way anyways. Try to make friends, not foes. And how can you turn them into a stepping stone versus a boulder? Okay. And lean on tools like your support system, wisdom of others, coaching, therapy, mentorship. I don't care. Find you some people to help you make your goals a reality. And remember, the journey may not always be easy, but it's always worth it. Keep moving, even if it's just one step at a time. So I'm encouraging you today to reflect on your own journey, your own goals, your own obstacles, and to take one small intentional step forward this week. Because you never know. You could wake up in a goal that you set 5 years ago, like me. And it may look a little different, but can be just as cool as the one that you put on paper that you at one point would have never thought possible. Until next time.
That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.